The color of Grandpa's truck matches the oxygen tanks at his bedside. When he was well, he'd drive me around the island in his sterling Nissan Frontier. I spent my preteen years coaxing dying breaths from its air conditioner on the way to my piano lessons, or else his piggery. Now, sick as he is, he rarely travels past our lanai. We're used to playing in silver, Grandpa and I. My earliest memories of worth rest in his hands, palms obscured by heaps of coins. He'd pulled them from plastic jars that were once full of treats, lychee jellies, chocolates, hard candies dressed up as strawberries, and he'd teach me the value of quarters, nickels, and dimes. We'd arrange them into stacks in the low light of his room and run our calculations. When the game felt more work than play, he'd reward me with cans of Ensure. The drink was better than candy then, liquid aluminum with a hint of sweet. I'd return to my room with my fingers stinking of money, my tongue metallic, its tip poking against the silver caps and fillings riddling my teeth, and think, we're rich. Grandpa is what I call my mother's father. He's going on 84, but he might have seen 90 if not for the smoke in his lungs. His dying appears overnight in the form of tanks and plastic tubes. Dad hides when the equipment arrives, the delivery men oblivious to the fugitive hiding in the neighboring bedroom. When they leave, we fluff Grandpa's pillows and make the bed. When he lays in it, we're careful not to assume that he has plans to get up. Emphysema, Mom calls it. It isn't cancer, but it's killing him all the same. The news doesn't feel like news at all. I could have guessed. There was another night when Mom caught us playing. Fresh home from work, she saw Grandpa watching over me as I huddled over a table, trying to roll a heap of dried leaves into a papered tube. She yelled first, laughed later. After that, Grandpa hid his tobacco from my hands and eyes, but I could always smell it on him, a scent more saccharine than my uncle's cigarettes. Before he taught me how to roll, he found other ways of filling my lungs up with smoke. He and Dad celebrated my birth by slaughtering a goat. And when Mom and I arrived from the hospital, there was already meat on the grill and the stink of burnt keratin in the air. She blames the barbecue for the ailments that plagued me as a child, asthma, bronchitis yet again. Had his health deteriorated sooner, I would have matched him. A grandfather on his BiPAP, a granddaughter nursing herself with a nebulizer at his feet. But we match in other ways. We were both born here, Grandpa on the Big Island and I on Kauai. At night, while we slumber, we both grind our teeth. Grandpa's jaw is mightier than mine. I can hear him from across the house, a drone that makes you think the walls are bowing, straining to hold the roof in place after 50-odd years. Then there is our love of words. Grandpa is known for a riddle and a rhyme. He presents it to his grandchildren as soon as they are able to speak, think, count, feeding it to them while they're perched on his knee. I had a little tea party this afternoon at 3. 'Twas very small, 3 guests in all, just I, myself, and me. How many guests were at the tea party, he asks. And even when I know the answer, when he has asked this question 1,000 and 1,000 more times, I answer 3, Grandpa, 3. He smacks my head, the force of it blunted with love. Tanga, he teases, 1 only. I, myself, and me. A month before Grandpa was born, Kauai's police opened fire on striking Filipino farm workers in Hanapepe, a 20-minute drive from my childhood home. He was on the Big Island at the time. His parents were sakadas, Ilocano farm workers lured to Hawaii by the Sugar Planters Association in the early 1900s. They tended sugar, the salt of their skin slick on their backs for the promise of something sweet. They left the Philippines for what they thought was Hawaii, but the plantations that seized them, with its crops to break teeth and white faces to break wills, was something brutal and new. Counterfeit, extracted, a cavity in place of a kingdom, recruiting my great-grandparents to feed the rot. But even rot is teeming with life, and on the hurt of one people, they and others scramble to build. Grandpa was born of those people. He was one child of 13, his community made up of Filipino, Japanese, Chinese, Portuguese migrants, all tending the same stolen land. Along with the Hawaiians who worked the fields, they cobbled together a language, And when the pidgin they built finally reaches my tongue, it is complex enough that some words can't be traced to any origin at all. I don't know when word of the Hanapepe massacre reached the Big Island. 16 Filipinos and 4 police officers dead, more injured. The striking men were hunted down, arrested, and brought to trial. Those who were found guilty were imprisoned, many deported. After blood was spilled on red dirt, the strike disintegrated within 8 months. The labor movement in Hawaii was largely led by Filipinos, and the flashpoint in Hanapepe seemed to signal the end. Pablo Manlapit, their foremost leader, struggled to unite Filipinos amongst themselves, let alone build alliances with other migrants. In 1935, when Grandpa was 11, Manlapit was arrested and forced to return to the Philippines. My family can't confirm whether my great-grandparents were among the striking Filipinos or if their hearts were broken by the deported and the dead. What I do know is that in the year after Manlapit's arrest, they decided there was no future left for them in Hawaii, and they plucked my grandpa and his siblings out of the Big Island and flung them back to the Ilocos. I wonder if it was the call of home that drew him back to the islands, if he knew as soon as he left that he was meant to return. My grandpa, the child of lands never his, aching for something, anything, his own. Sometimes when I meet other Filipinos, diasporic or otherwise, they tell me the respectful word I should be using for my grandfather is lolo. How could they know that the word was an insult to his years, meaning crazy in Hawaiian and pidgin too? He asked us to never assign it to him by name, a claim in a single word, his tongue rooted in the plantations after all these years. A riddle or two. How much is a father's citizenship worth in a stolen kingdom? How can his daughter begin to weigh the circumstances of her birth? Thank you.